So let's talk about the Women's Prize Longlist 2024 because it is a very, very long list. 16 books is a lot of books to cover in such a short time period, but let's do a little catch up and I'll tell you where I'm at in terms of my reading status. Hi, my name is Kim and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. If I am new to you, I am a lover of literary fiction, and as you can probably tell by the name of my channel, I am hugely obsessed with the Booker Prize. I also follow the International Prize, the Women's Prize of course, and Panda Reads. So let's get talking about the long list. So the Women's Prize winner announcement will be made in 2.5 weeks on Wednesday, June 13th. So I thought I would start to talk to you about what I have DNF'd this year on the long list. And yes, I have DNF'd a few, only because there is such a short period of time to read the long list as well as the International Booker, which just ended, and I will link videos in the description box below if you'd like to do a catch up on that with me. So the first book I DNF'd was actually the first book I started listening to off of the long list, and it was Hangman by Maya Binyon, and the audiobook was done by Ronnie Butler, and this is a debut fiction novel from the US, and it is a satire, and I listened to a couple of hours of it, and it fell so flat for me. I really didn't believe in the main character. I didn't believe that any of his actions slash inactions were plausible. I didn't buy the premise of someone just getting a plane ticket in the mail and blindly following that in search of his brother from unknown connections, and just what sort of spiraled after that. You know that this is a man who's just going to do whatever he's told in whatever settings he's in. And then I finally DNF'd it when it came to the strange scene with the pigeon in the bathroom and feeding him his airline food. Anyways, I think that satire is a very, very difficult genre to write, and I applaud all the writers who attempt it. I think that it is one of those genres that is either going to be brilliant or going to be absolutely horrible and not believable. This really gave me reminders of Less by Andrew Sean Greer, and it's incredibly well done. It's very funny, but this, it just wasn't believable and it fell flat, and I stopped listening to it. So the next one I DNF'd, and I'm gonna say I didn't really DNF'd it. I think I was just not, it wasn't the book for me at the moment, and that is And Then She Fell by Alicia Elliott. And I really thought that this book was going to tick off all of the boxes for me. She is Canadian, she is Indigenous, I am Canadian. This book has touches of magic realism and there's creation story in it. And I was really, really excited to get to this one. But in about 50 to 75 pages, I was just, and maybe it's a sign that it is going to be a good book, but I just wasn't in the right space to read about a helpless woman who was hiding herself in society and just getting deeper and deeper into the horrors of that. It just annoyed me to no end, and that is just a pet peeve of mine. I do have it reserved on audiobook, so I'm going to give it a go when that comes in, because I do think that it has a lot of merit. It wasn't a book for me at the moment. And then another book that I am not going to get to is The Blue Beautiful World by Karen Lord. It is a sci-fi and climate change book. And the reason I'm not going to read this one is because I haven't read or I haven't listened to a single good review about it. And I think it's problematic when the third book in a trilogy is nominated for an award and that book is supposed to stand alone. Now, other books have done it beautifully, no doubt, but I think that there's just too big of a cast of characters to make this novel a great standalone novel. And it didn't make the long list, so I'm okay with letting that go. So now let's talk about the rest of the long list that didn't make the short list. So, the first book I want to talk about is actually the only book that I had read when the long list was announced. And if you follow me, this won't be any surprise. It is Western Lane by Cheetna Maru. And it was shortlisted for the Booker last year in 2023. And I thought this was a good book. I can't stand the cover. Actually, I couldn't stand any of the covers from here in North America or the UK. But it's a small press, so you can't get too picky. Um, and I liked this book. I thought that it was very interesting in terms of how it explored grief and how your grief can be funneled into physical activities such as squash. There is a scene in which one of the girls is talking to her dead mother that has really stayed with me. But in the end, I didn't enjoy the pacing. It is a short and sharp book. I think it's less than 150 pages. And I really thought that the first three quarters of it was slow and that the ending was very predictable, or was over way too quickly. The next book that I read from the long list that didn't make the short list was The Maiden by Kate Foster. She is a debut novelist from Scotland. And I purchased this book even though I was wary of it because of the very sort of YA cover vibes that it gave off. But it is based in 1679 in Scotland. It's based on a true story. And this book just wasn't for me. I actually read it when I wasn't feeling very well because I picked it because it seemed like a lighter story, even though it's about a woman who ends up in a guillotine, which is not a spoiler. That's told right from the beginning. um, I just didn't buy into the characters and what they were doing. I felt that the male character was just one dimensional, and very cliche. I thought that what the main character was doing was just the oldest tale in the history of time, and you knew it wasn't going to end well. So, if you are in need of an historical fiction slash romance slash crime, it's not really a thriller, and you're sick or you need something to read on a plane or you need something later on the beach, this is the book. But I was really surprised that it made the long list. But on to the next one. So, I also read A Trace of Sun by Pam Williams. This is takes place in the 1960s. It is based on her family history, and this was a really solid read. There were points of this that it really felt like a memoir to me. It is about a woman who leaves her older son behind to immigrate to the UK, and they are reunited 7 years later, and there are huge repercussions that ripple through all of their lives for years to come. And it is a lot about the immigrant experience, about being between cultures, about displacement, what family means to you, and friendship. And I really enjoyed it. I would recommend it. I think that it's a really good book, and I will definitely read her again. Now, the next few I'm hoping to get to. The first one will be Ordinary Human Failings by Megan Nolan. And I'll be listening to this on audiobook, and it's done by Jessica Reagan. This is also a true crime book, and it's gotten all sorts of rave reviews. So I'm really hoping that it comes in. I've got it on hold right now, and I will be getting to it in the future. The other one that intrigues me off the long list that didn't make the short list is from a Korean author, and there are so many interesting Korean authors that are being translated right now. I think it's fantastic. And that is Eight Lives of a Century-Old Trickster by Miranee Lee, and it narrated by Cindy Kay. This is a debut novelist. It is inspired by the story of her great aunt, who is one of the oldest women to escape alone from North Korea. It's told in 8 dark chapters, and I really, really think I'm going to enjoy this one. So I'm waiting for this one to come in on hold as well. Second last one is Night Bloom by Peace Adzo Mede. It is not narrated by Jessica Scargodi, Iku Ikuma, and Sarah Dargabezi. It takes place in Guyana, and it is a power of female childhood friendships. And I will be listening to this on audio in the future. And the final book from this sort of subcategory is In Defense of the Act by Effie Black from the UK. And this is about suicide, so you have triggers about suicide or grief. This is not the book for you. This is a very, very heavy topic, and she does this in such a compassionate, interesting, and nuanced way that just stunned me. And despite the awful cover with the offensive pill and the horrible typeface and the typo errors in it, I completely adored this book. Just like last year, and I know I'm still talking about it, but last year one of my favorite books from the International Booker was My Birthday Party by Laurent Mauvignier, translated from French by Daniel Levine Becker. And I read this book all in one go, loved it, said it's going to win the Booker, and it didn't even make the shortlist. So I feel like I'm having that moment again with this one, because this is one of the most stunning books I've read this year so far. I made a video about all of the books that I've read so far, all of the great books, and I'll link that in the description box below. This is so well written. I hope that Effie Black is writing right now, because I need more books by this wonderful human being. The first couple of pages, the opening scene, is so incredibly well done, and that opening scene is mirrored towards the end of the book, and it still gives me shivers to think about it. And the structure of it, the way that it's told in short, sort of, I would say almost vignettes, but short chapters. And one chapter is Black Day, and then the other chapter is how she is feeling. Now, this is about a twin who has lost her brother to suicide, and her very slow reconciliation with that loss, as well as other tragic things that happen around her. This is a very, very sad book, but it is beautiful and lovely, and I would highly recommend it. So now we're going to get to the shortlist. So here's where I'm at with the shortlist, and we'll start off with Restless Dolly Maunder by Kate Grenfell. She is a previous winner, and I absolutely adore Kate Grenfell. I have read 2 of her other books. One is The Secret River, and the other one is The Idea of Perfection. 5 out of 5 stars. She is a beautiful writer. She can depict a landscape and evoke a sense of space that is absolutely amazing. This was actually one of my most anticipated reads for this year, and I was so disappointed. First of all, I do really like the cover. Now, this is set in the 1880s in Australia, and like a lot of these other books, it's based on her actual grandmother. And this book just felt flat to me. I love the thought and concept of this book. I love that she was enamored and wanted to bestow, I guess, a memory of her grandmother to the world. But to me, it felt very contrived. I felt like every chapter she was just checking off boxes, like chapter 1, this is what I know about my grandma. Here's this, here's that, here's that. Chapter 2, rinse and repeat. And I didn't fall in love with the character. I felt that she was really one-dimensional. And she does address this towards the end of the book by saying that women's lives were so marginalized that there wasn't a lot that they could do. But what she did was immense, even though to us it doesn't seem immense. And oh, and in the front flap, there is a mistake. It says that she only has 2 children, but she has 3. So I spent all of the book waiting for one of the kids to be offed, and that's the publisher's mistake. Anyways, I think that what I would have preferred Kate Grenville to do, and I mean, I don't think she cares what I think, but what I would have preferred her to say, this is based on my grandmother, and this is the life that I think my grandmother would have lived if social constraints weren't what they are, and made this woman into, something bigger than that, and taken the elements of fiction and imagination and be able to convey her spirit that way. Or I wish that she had made this into a memoir instead. So sadly, Kate Grenville, highly recommend. Don't start with this book. If you have started with this book, go to her other books. They are way better, and you won't be disappointed by her other 2. Even her nonfiction, the writing book, is really, really good. So the next book, which I just finished a couple days ago, is River East, River West by Abe Ray Lescure. And this is a debut novelist. And here's the really geeky part about me. I think this cover is stunning. And I'll put some footage in here. But you have no idea how much the geek in me loves the fact that this cover matched the shawl that I'm knitting right now. It just gave me all the things. Just makes life magical. Anyways, about the book. This takes place in Shanghai, and it's told back and forth between 2 periods, and the structure is really, really well done. So in the 2000s, it centers around a young teenage girl who's coming to age and who is dealing with her mother in Shanghai, who's originally from America. She was born in Shanghai, and her stepfather. And then it mirrors back to her stepfather's actual life 20 years before. And what I found really interesting and compelling was that the young woman does not know the history of her stepfather, and it slowly comes together into 2 points and merges. This is very much about a story of immigration, and being caught between 2 cultures, being caught between River East and River West, and never quite fitting in. It's about what it means to be a family, what it means to be a daughter. There are interesting friendships that also denote those themes. It's extremely well paced. The only reason I didn't love it, and I won't give it away, but it's the ending. Other than that, I think this is a really, really good, solid read. I can't wait to see what she writes next. And it was a solid, solid read. Not 5-star, but it was definitely worth the read. And the cover is freaking amazing. So the next one I read is The Wren by Anne Enright. She is from Ireland, and she was a former Booker winner for The Gathering. And someone commented, and thank you for your comments, that it was slow, and there was too much about the sex the daughter was having. And yes, it is a slowly paced book. It is about a young woman who is coming to terms with her mother and her poet grandfather. And what Anne Enright does so well, and she really reminds me a lot of Elizabeth Strout, is she's able to write nuanced intricacies, especially involving dialogue, that just read so beautifully, and they're so understated. And she did all the poetry as well. And I thought that it just flowed in and out of everybody's storyline so well and so quietly, but had such a poignant story to tell, that I think it's absolutely beautifully done. And the title, while I won't give it away, is is wonderful. Every time I say the title, there are images in my mind that are evoked, as well as certain scenes. So absolutely lovely, lovely book. So the next book, we're getting into the last three, is Brotherless Night by V.V. Gainshenhanathan, and I'm listening to it on audio by Nirmala Raz Asingam, and this is a historical novel that takes place in Sri Lanka. I've only listened to a couple of hours of it, and it is quite a long novel. It is about a young woman with four brothers who is trying to live amongst the civil war in Sri Lanka. And slowly her brothers are becoming involved in that war, and she's fighting to become educated because she wants to become a medical doctor. And I really, really am engrossed in this. I love the main character, and I like her sense of family and her community as well. So far it's really, really strong. But I will get back to you when I have thoughts about that. So the next one is Entered Ghost by Isabel Hamad. The audio is narrated by Nadia Albion, and it is about Hamlet. And the main character is an actress who is performing Hamlet, and she's come back to Palestine as someone who's lived in the UK for quite some time. And what I like best about this book is the slow tension that it is building. So there is Sonia's personal life that is going on, that she's trying to reconcile herself with, while at the same time the actors are rehearsing Hamlet and relating Hamlet to their own experiences and trying to make it more culturally relatable for them, and it's done in a very good way. There is a scene in which Sonia is going through a security check, and she comes across someone who is British, and she thinks that she's going to be able to make a connection with him, but can't, because everybody's on different sides. And I find that very interesting, in how lost everybody is and how everybody is trying to search for themselves in others, but the community is so different, and everything is fueled on unrest and violence. It's really intriguing, but it is taking me a long time to get through it. I keep stopping and starting it because it is really intense, but good so far. And the last one to talk about is Soldier Sailor by Clara Kilroy out of Ireland. And I will be listening to this on audio by Simone Collins. The main character is a first-time mother, and she's questioning what her new life means. To me, this really gives off Boulder by Eva Baltazar, translated by Julia Sanchez vibes from International Booker last year, as well as Stillborn by Guadalupe Nettle, translated by Rosalind Harvey, also from the International Booker last year. And I think that it approaches motherhood in a very different way, and unromanticizes it. I'm really looking forward to getting to this book. It just came out in Canada yesterday. So I have it on hold on audio, and I'm hoping it comes in very, very shortly. But I will be reading / listening to all of the shortlisted books that I have talked about, and I will get back to you when I have completed it and I have thoughts on it. So thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you spending your time with me. And thank you to all of my subscribers. To those who are new, thanks for joining me. I appreciate your time. And for those of you who have stuck with me since the beginning, thank you. Please like and subscribe and click that bell. It really, really helps out my channel. And I can't wait to see you for the next video. Oh, and I did slip in a little something that I just finished this morning, and was actually late to things because of it, but I will talk about that in my next video. Thanks again. See you soon. Hope that's better. Hope that's better. Okay. Need water.